Read on.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
The movie business is full of whimsy and fantasies and sometimes even talking cars. But it's also a business at the end of the day, and behind the scenes, it's not uncommon for contracts and legal disputes to take place. There's actually been a number of instances where an actor is legally forced to play a role that, for whatever reason, they are not interested in playing.
That's classified.
Here's 10 examples of actors forced into playing a part in a movie because Johnny Law told them so. Now, this is my favorite entry of the entire list because it's so utterly absurd and hilarious. Of course, it would be Bill Murray that would stumble into this silly of a predicament. A script for the movie Garfield came his way, and he saw that it was written by Joel Coen, one of the legendary Coen brothers duo. Bill read 4 pages before jumping on board and signing his name to the bottom of the page. Only he didn't bother to do any research or ask any questions because it took showing up on set for the first day of shooting for Bill to learn that this was a different Joel Coen. Rather than written by the guy who wrote The Big Lebowski and No Country for Old Men, this was written by the Joel Coen who wrote Cheaper by the Dozen and had no relation to the famed Coen brothers. Of course, it was way too late for Murray to back out at that point. Murray claims to have spent weeks in the sound booth working on the dialogue in an attempt to save the film, but if you've seen Garfield, you'd know how well that worked. Poor Keanu Reeves. The story of how he got involved in The Watcher is a crazy one. Coming off the success of The Matrix, Keanu's iron was never hotter, and it was time to strike with another major hit. But that didn't exactly happen. Instead, he made The Watcher, and it wasn't even his decision. He didn't even really get tricked into doing it. He just got taken advantage of. His friend Jode Carbonek, who had filmed Reeves' band Dogstar while they were on tour, signed on to direct The Watcher. According to reports, he allegedly forged his superstar pal's name on a contract to be the antagonist of the series. Whoa. The same way you'd fake your parents' signature on a test in grade school, this guy did it with a major movie studio contract. And not all of our friends have our best interest at heart. Keanu tried getting out of the role because, well, he never agreed to do it, but a whole legal headache ensued. Rather than go through a long and tedious legal battle to get out of it, Keanu reluctantly decided that it was just easier to do the movie. Once the movie was released, Keanu did absolutely nothing to promote it. What's even crazier is there was a legal clause forbidding him from talking about his involvement in the movie for 12 months. He couldn't even tell people that he was tricked into doing it. Once that period time ran out, he definitely wasn't shy about letting people know. When Natalie Portman appeared opposite Chris Hemsworth in the very first Thor movie, that was a pretty big get. Keep in mind, this was in the early days of the MCU, before they started nabbing up every big-name movie star in Hollywood. At the time, it added some much appreciated and very valuable credibility to the budding movie franchise. That's why Portman was able to use her leverage a bit when it came time for the second installment, Thor: The Dark World. She insisted that the studio hire Patty Jenkins to direct the project, and the studio agreed. That is, they agreed for a little bit. The relationship between Jenkins and Marvel didn't last very long, as she was removed from the project for creative differences. Portman, however, had already signed on to do the project and had to go ahead and do the movie anyway, despite her recruit being let go. Portman was not pleased and let her grievances be known publicly, along with her distaste for Thor: The Dark World. I mean, she wasn't wrong either. Portman was nowhere to be seen in 2017's Thor: Ragnarok, despite being heavily involved in the plot of the first 2 films. One would assume this means she severed all ties with the MCU, but that actually couldn't be further from the truth. Portman is rumored to be the lead character in the upcoming Thor: Love and Thunder, due out in 2021. Eddie Norton is another one of those I wish I didn't sign a multi-film deal kind of situations. You'd think that signing a massive deal with a huge studio like Paramount would be something to get excited for, but that isn't always the case. For Norton, he was coming off of his breakout role in 1996's Primal Fear, which earned him an Oscar nomination. He followed that up with Fight Club, another instant classic and massive success. You'd figure that he'd continue his meteoric rise to success.
Yeah?
Yes, I do.
But that's when Paramount stuck him in The Italian Job. Don't get me wrong, The Italian Job isn't a terrible movie, but it's just a major step back to go from Academy Awards buzz to the bad guy in a car heist movie.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but this is too much.
He tried declining the role, but Paramount got the law involved and Norton was forced to participate. Similar to our last entry, Emily Blunt was also on a real hot streak when her contract got in the way. She was coming off a massive performance in The Devil Wears Prada and was apparently in high demand throughout Hollywood. She was even being considered for the role of Black Widow in Iron Man 2, but a clause in her contract stated that she had to star in another romance movie with Fox Studios first, and thus the role went to Scarlett Johansson, and Blunt reluctantly starred in Gulliver's Travels. The movie was both a financial and a critical bomb, and whatever momentum she had building in her career took an abrupt halt. She's still a super talented and well-respected actor, but there's no telling how high her stock would be today if she was involved in the MCU this whole time. In case you weren't aware, it's common practice for actors to sign multi-film contracts with the studio. It's a nice financial cushion for these stars. On the flip side, it can often mean that an actor has to work on something that they aren't interested in doing. That was the case for young Shia LaBeouf, who signed on to do not one, not two, but 3 Transformers movies from the get-go. According to reports, distaste for the franchise started growing after the second movie. He felt as though the heart of the films was gone and the characters got lost. That makes sense, considering he's one of the purest artists in Hollywood and he takes his craft very seriously. In hindsight, he's kind of the last person who would enjoy jumping through exploding sports cars in a Michael Bay movie, and those two definitely didn't see eye to eye the entire time either. Shia would end up finishing up the trio of films and made a pretty penny for his efforts too. I'm sure he'd have done things differently if he could go back and redo it all, but then again, those millions of dollars have a way of making you feel a bit better.
Just do it!
In 2003, lovable Canadian funny man and Saturday Night Live alum Mike Myers starred in as the titular character of a beloved children's book turned movie, The Cat in the Hat. Everything about that seems lovely and pleasant, doesn't it? Well, this isn't how things played out, unfortunately. This is a weird one. After the big success of Wayne's World and Austin Powers, Myers' next move was about to be a Saturday Night Live movie based on his sketch character Dieter. Myers even wrote the movie himself, but backed out at the last minute, deciding it wasn't the right choice. This led to a whole bunch of legal disputes, with the two sides finally coming to an agreement. Myers wouldn't have to do the Dieter movie, but he would have to star in The Cat in the Hat, which he did, very reluctantly. It was apparently glaringly obvious on set that he didn't want to be there and did not enjoy his time on the Dr. Seuss project. Even his co-star Amy Hill referred to him as a hermit and a diva.
Again, you are right.
Top Gun is still culturally relevant, even though it came out in 1986. That's a long time for a movie's popularity to last. It was also debatably the role that put Val Kilmer on the map, although that almost wasn't the case. Yeah, that's right. Kilmer actually wanted nothing to do with the project. You see, he had signed a 3-picture deal with Paramount and had already completed 2/3 of the agreement. He was getting restless and didn't want to even do a third movie, but was legally obligated to feature in a third role. He reluctantly took a meeting with Top Gun director Tony Scott, who wouldn't let him decline the part. Kilmer wasn't interested, but Scott cast him in the part regardless, so things worked out for Val in the end. You would think it's every actor's dream to get cast as a superhero. That's like the modern day stamp of approval that means you're a big time star. After all, pretty much every big name in Hollywood has a comic book counterpart that they represent. Having said that, getting cast in a superhero role isn't always a good thing apparently, at least not for Jessica Alba, who starred as Sue Storm in the 2005 Fantastic Four movie. It was so bad, and to make matters worse, because she signed a 3-movie deal with the studio, she reluctantly had to reprise the role in the sequel in 2007. That movie did so poorly that they canceled the 3rd movie in her contract and basically told her, yeah, don't worry about it. According to reports, she hated the experience so much that it made her contemplate leaving the acting industry altogether. I mean, I'd be pretty turned off by the whole thing if I had to star in that Fantastic Four movie too. It's hard to imagine that even Hollywood's most well-respected and highly regarded royalty had to do some projects he wasn't so interested in. It doesn't get more A-list than Marlon Brando, but even the legends need to suck it up and deal with it sometimes. Due to some legal disputes, Brando was forced to appear in Desiree, but he did not do so without putting up a fight and being difficult. According to his co-stars, he mailed in the entire performance. He would habitually forget lines and cause a scene on set, usually on purpose. He reportedly would even constantly toss around a football between takes, showing just how little interest he had in taking this project seriously. It was like he was trying to sabotage the thing, which makes it all the more fascinating and impressive that the movie turned out to be a huge success. Just imagine how much better it would have been if he was invested. These things happen when contracts and legal agreements are involved. Which one of these that we mentioned do you think turned out the best, and why? Or is there another example that we forgot to mention? Let us know in the comments below. Before you go, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to ScreenRant for more awesome videos. Until next time, see ya!